Hello, I'm Jeremy from the Synology UK team. Welcome to a recording of a session of Synology Solution Day 2020. Work anywhere and everywhere with Synology's hybrid cloud tools as well as our business collaboration solutions. The agenda for what we'll be talking about: first, we'll look at how you can build your own private cloud with Synology, how you have complete control over your data. Then we'll look at how you can build this private cloud not just on a single site but do multi-site deployments. That's really essential for enterprise customers. And then we'll take a look at this concept of hybrid cloud. What package are you going to use in Synology to make sure that your data flows in between your local private cloud into any of the public cloud services that you might be using? So we'll start by looking at modern collaboration tools that allow you to build this private cloud solution. Traditionally, NAS servers, if you remember 5-10 years ago, they were really very simple. Pretty much file servers on your network, and there was not that much else to it. And I would say Synology engineers were really essential in redefining what a NAS can do. So much so that we like to say it's not just network app storage, but network application server. And there's really so many things that you can do. Over 100 packages in our package center, anywhere from a calendar or chat server, email, CCTV, can even run VMs as a hypervisor. So there's really a lot that can be done with our business units. Now, you often hear that, public cloud is the future. Still, when you look at surveys, businesses consistently say that they still need to have private cloud solutions over which they have complete control. A report by RightScale found that 72% of businesses still needed, as of last year, a private cloud solution. So it begs the question, where's this demand coming from? I think we can all remember scandals such as that of the NSA. Obviously, people don't like being spied on, especially if it's confidential business data. That's a first thing that springs to mind. But think also of public cloud services like Microsoft, Dropbox. They have had data hacked at some stage, and that also creates a certain worry for business users. And I think this is really illustrated by the fact that, we've all heard of GDPR. This is really in response to the worries of customers who want to make sure that corporations are handling their data well and that there are no privacy or confidentiality concerns. So privacy and control is an important aspect. Some hidden advantages of private cloud are actually the total cost of ownership. You don't necessarily think of it at first because, a lot of businesses move to the public cloud because there's no upfront investment. But we actually see customers, and there was a story of Dropbox a few years back who moved away from using Amazon Web Services, re-internalized their infrastructure using their own data center, and that allowed them to save $75 million per year. So that's, in terms of cost, is an important one. And then internet latency. Currently we all know what the situation is with the lockdown due to COVID-19. Everyone working from home. ISPs are sometimes struggling to deliver the same level of bandwidth that they would normally give, and that is impacting the productivity of many businesses. So with these benefits in mind, I think we understand why there's still a strong demand for private cloud solutions, and that's really what we strive to do at Synology. Allow your Synology, whether it's a small 2-bay, a 5-bay, or one of the higher end racks, allow you to host and power your own private cloud over which you have complete control over your data. So there are many packages that allow you to do that. I'd like to focus on these in this session: Synology Drive, MailPlus, Chat, Calendar, and these allow you to have all the key functions of a business hosted and over which you have complete control. We'll start with Synology Drive. I like to call it the Air to Cloud Station. A lot of people are still maybe even using Cloud Station, although it's slowly being migrated into Synology Drive. It's an app with a lot of maturity. We launched it in 2012. What does it do? What are the highlights? So first, it's completely free to use. No recurring costs, no licensing. It's cross-platform: Windows, Mac, Linux clients, and also mobile applications, so you can access your files on iOS and Android. We'll take a look at a smart caching system called Sync on Demand. Synology Drive also allows you to share files very easily and securely. And then finally, if you're not on a single site, site-to-site synchronization is also supported. So just a recap, I've mentioned this, but really it's cross-platform, and you can access your data, whether it's on a web browser, a desktop, a mobile device, and even you can synchronize with another Synology NAS. So just a word about this on-demand sync, this feature that I mentioned. The idea is we leverage an API that was made available for Windows File Explorer. Basically, it means that files that are frequently used will be cached, will be using storage on your PC, and only those. So a smart caching or dynamic caching mechanism is going to reduce the amount of storage, bandwidth used, and importantly, you can also exclude certain files like videos which you may not want to see using up space unnecessarily. So this was made available for Windows machines, Windows 10, due to this API, and because we want to make sure that no one's discriminated against, we're also going to be bringing support for Mac users, hopefully in 2020. So without further ado, I think we should just illustrate this with a demo of Synology Drive. We'll be taking a look at how to do the file synchronization, key settings that you have both for the IT admin and also for the user, and we'll take a look at this on-demand sync. So here we are on our Windows machine. You can see we have a folder. That's why I usually dump files before uploading them. Well, here it won't be manual. It's going to be automatically monitored by Synology Drive. You can see the small icon, available status, sync pending. And what we'll do a bit later is just take those two images, the Jaguar and Mercedes, and we'll see how it automatically uploads it. So that's the idea, pretty simple. First, we take a look at what's inside the folder. So you can see 3 images, a set of slides, check out the status. That's important. We'll look at it later. And also I want to show you these settings. So this is what the user has control over. You can see how many synchronization tasks are happening. You can check out the rules. So folder, file filter, maximum file size if you want to define one. Which specific extensions underneath would you like to not see synchronized? Again, you've got complete control over that. You can customize it. And then the synchronization mode. It can be a two-way sync. It can download only, upload only one way. That's obviously if you don't have the on-demand sync, which is enabled. Right. So I think this gives you a good view of what you have at the task level. Let's close that and take a look on the side. So this is more general. You may want to have purely backup tasks. There's an option for that, and global settings. For instance, what happens when a file is deleted locally? Do you refetch it? Do you remove it? And also file version conflict resolution. That is also there to control. Right. So that is for the settings part. What we're going to do is just move on with the demo. I'm just moving this window, and we're going to go to the NAS. So if you open File Station, so this is all on the DSM on the disk station. You can see another folder called Files and Photos, which we're mapping, and here the files are all physically present. So they're using space on the Synology NAS. However, back in Windows, only 2 of them are actually using up hard drive space. What we now need to do is actually test the synchronization. So we're going to try and upload. We dump this in the folder. It's automatically detected, nothing for us to do, and automatically uploaded. And there's even a notification in DSM. So that's really how dead simple it is. You can use it as an automatic backup option, or just as a way to upload without any manual input. Right, so let's just resize this window and take a look at our different files. You can see the size that they physically are in real life, and obviously if they have that little green tick, it means that they're physically synchronized to the Windows machine. Now if they have a little cloud icon, they're not using any space locally, and you can see that by checking the properties of the file, 0 bytes being used, so that's perfect. We're going to see what happens when you double click on one. We'll do that with the JAG image. You double click on it, just caches the data, and then you open it, and it'll be there to edit locally if you need. So again, really simple, but that is what we mean by on-demand sync. Let's go back to the DSM, and we're going to just check out what the IT admin can play around with, and that is in Synology Drive Admin Console. So first thing is a version explorer. Just click on the version explorer option, and you can see all of your folders which are being synchronized. And then, well, you just see the files that are there, and you can check at a specific point in time. If you're missing a file, you can choose to restore it. Client list, you can automatically unlink someone if needed, so that's to have control over that. And then the team folders which are available, you don't have to make them accessible, so if you want, you have complete control over that. And then versions, rotation policies, that's all there, and you can define it at the folder level. Right, so I think we've covered the settings both for the users and for the IT admin. We're going to move on. So Synology Drive is redesigned as a unified file portal. What I mean by that is that we've taken a lot of the different file services which are in different apps, and Synology Drive is consolidating them. The file synchronization from CloudStation that I mentioned, but also the file station, the web portal access, and also online collaboration. That's the Synology Office. So Synology Drive really encompasses all of that. Synology Office is one of those key tools for businesses. It's very similar to what you'll find on pure cloud solutions, but the key aspect is you have complete control over it. It's on your Synology NAS, nothing is going to a third party. And because we want to make sure that you don't have to choose, it actually allows to do conversions of files into regular docx, like the Microsoft formats, the Google Drive ones, again, to make sure that everything ties in together better. Secure solution. Obviously, if you are going to be hosting this privately, it's that you don't want your data with third parties. Therefore, we need to make sure that you also have encryption available. It's supported, and importantly, it's at the file level, so you can password protect it with AES 256 without doing the entire database file by file as possible. Then historical versions. When is that useful? Well, users can retrieve at a specific point in time, but importantly, if you're hit by ransomware, for instance, it also means that you'll be able to restore to a point before the infection. If you are going to be running your own business messenger service, why would you want to do that? Well, if you're running a Synology Office, you probably don't want to be relying on Microsoft Skype. So for that, you have Synology Chat. What are some of the key benefits? Well, all of the key modern features that you have in a chat are there: channels, polls, threaded messages, powerful search function as well. Cross-device, so multiple platforms are supported. Obviously, the key computer, Mac, Linux ones are there, but also mobile applications with iOS and Android, as well as browsers. So a lot of flexibility there. And then complete conversation encryption is supported. That means that an IT admin will not be able to even see the conversations of a user, because the user actually selects their key. So that's really important to really emphasize just how protected the data is. Even an IT admin can't just go checking out conversations. Fully integrated, so we do that with all of our productivity applications like Synology Office. You're co-working on a spreadsheet at the same time with a colleague, you can actually create a Synology Chat window and discuss in real time. Third-party video conferencing is supported. So you may be thinking, doesn't that defeat the purpose of hosting it? Well, none of your data is being transferred. You have complete control over that. And the third party is, in a way, taking over the video conferencing side. You may not want to run that on the Synology, which might be an Atom-based unit. So there it does make sense to rely on a third party. But again, none of your data is being leaked to a third party. Webhook integration is similar. Webhooks, I think the best way to explain what they do is to give an example. So an IT admin will be able to create little automated chat assistants. Typically when you enter weather and your location in the chat, the Synology Chat will automatically return that information. So in London it's going to be sunny, who knows, sometimes happens, and that means that it automates it and makes it just friendlier for the users. And there's lots that you can automate as an IT admin, so it also improves your productivity. Now, chat is an important solution. We do recognise that email is still the backbone of the communication for most businesses, so we have something called Synology MailPlus. You may know that there's another solution called Synology Mail Station, which is based on Roundcube. Now, why have we gone out of our way to develop MailPlus? Well, for users, for customers who want to still control their email, have it completely internalized, but want something with a nicer interface than Roundcube, this brings a really great interface, very intuitive, a bit like what you see on Gmail, Microsoft Outlook. So that's the idea behind it. Just flagging some key features: multiple domain support. If you're an MSP, it means that you can have everything within the same MailPlus, but make sure that each customer has their own domain. High availability design. This is quite important. You're not actually relying on the DSM HA, which means you have to synchronize the entire NAS hardware and software. You're only doing a HA within the Mail Plus solution, and importantly, it means that you don't need to have an identical Synology NAS. So quite a flexible and well thought out implementation of high availability. Securing your email in the age of GDPR. GDPR compliance is done with powerful auditing tools. You can customize the management retention policies and erasures for your emails. Protecting your mail service, so it's important that it's a solution that you have complete control over where the emails are hosted, but we will still leverage any third-party spam engines or databases for antiviruses like Google Safe Browsing. But again, it's a hybrid solution from that perspective, but none of your data is going to a third party. And finally, advanced monitoring. Well, it's important that if you have a very secure solution, that you still have feedback, that you can easily visualize what's happening in your system. So that is, from the IT admin's perspective, a nice tailored and clear solution to monitor. Competitive licensing. There's generally two things when you're looking to migrate to a private email solution, like hosting it yourself: the licensing and how easy it's going to be, so the migration. Let's address these 2 points. So for the licensing here, obviously all other things being equal, same number of users, you have Synology MailPlus licensing compared to Microsoft and Google G Suite. How do we achieve that? Well, first, it's with a one-time cost. It's not a subscription-based model, so that's a first very important aspect. And then, if that's good news, if your business is growing really fast, you might need to upgrade your Synology to a more powerful one. You don't need to rebuy the licensing. The licenses, they'll migrate with to your new units. Speaking of that, sizing recommendations, there's pretty much a Synology for what you need to do. Plus series will handle up to 150 users, roughly 1.5 million emails per day. And at the other end of the spectrum, our all-flash arrays will handle up to 2,200 users and close to 6 million emails per day. So that's for the costs. Let's talk about the migration, which is the other blocking point, let's say. How do you go from Exchange, Gmail, onto a privately hosted MailPlus solution? So it's about getting all of your data, your emails migrated. It's actually done with a system called that relies on IMAP, and importantly, we've got tutorials and a bit of a wizard to accompany you through the process to make it as painless as possible. So I'd like to highlight a few ones. For instance, the delegate account means that you don't need to have the credentials of every single user's accounts to do the migration. Also, you can control how many accounts are migrated per period. So lots of control for you as an IT admin. Right, so if you have all of these systems, not just MailPlus, but the chat, the office, the calendar, hosted on your Synology, can be more than one, it's really essential that every single one of these services for a user has the same credentials. If they have to have 4 separate sets of credentials, it's not going to work. All of them will authenticate, will support, so logging in against an AD service, and not just a privately hosted one, but also you can create a hybrid solution by authenticating against an Azure solution hosted by Microsoft. So that's really useful for the implementation from an IT admin's perspective. Let's illustrate this with a case study. So Pentagon Networks, they're a key MSP who use Synology in the UK. Very professional and know Synology inside out. how are they using all our kit? And I think it's a really interesting implementation they have. So to host services for the SMB clients, and that is email services, Synology Drive, even CCTV, they are making use of, well, you can see here the MailPlus HA cluster with the multiple domain support, and also our virtual machine manager solution. So using the Synology as a cluster of hypervisors with some flexibility, the options to make live migrations between the different nodes. So that's quite an interesting setup. You can read more about the case study, and what's really interesting for them is they can actually run this with the on desktop units. So notably the 212 bay ones are Xeon powered, but they haven't needed to go into the rack range, and that means that they're keeping the overall total cost of the solution roughly around £15,000. So very, very cost competitive with everything included, including the licenses. Right, so let's talk about not just single site, but also multi-site deployments. And that is really essential for enterprise customers. And we're going to discuss why. So if you are going with a single site approach, it means that customers on other subsidiaries, for instance, will be accessing over a web browser, computer, and remote access is going to be required. What are some of the limiting factors? Well, the first one is the latency that we've talked about. When that is bad, especially for an international team, here when we prepare an event with a lot of marketing collateral, large PowerPoint files, if there's a lot of latency, it takes time to synchronize, and it reduces the team's productivity. Maybe you'll have other aspects such as bandwidth quotas or from your ISP or just internal network limitations that can have an impact. And then just simply when you have large video files, large CAD files in manufacturing, you don't want to be sending those over the internet. It's important when you're editing to do that locally. It's much faster, much more productive. So for that, we have a really essential tool, still part of Synology Drive. It's called ShareSync. Think of it as a client, but not installed on your computer, but on another Synology. And it synchronizes files between folders that you want to make to keep in sync. So multi-site coordination. First aspect is that you can synchronize folder permissions with domain users and keep control of file level permissions at the same time. To have more granularity and control, you can go beyond the regular Unix permissions and enable Windows ACL, so more granularity to control who within the organization has access to what. And then you can also set up one-way, two-way sync. We saw that in Synology Drive. It's also available for Synology Drive ShareSync. Let's take a look at an implementation. So you will probably have a more powerful unit in HQ, maybe a Xeon-based rack, and in each subsidiary a smaller unit because you might not need everything synchronized. You can maybe, for the branches that need it, have bidirectional sync. Any changes they make will go back to HQ, and then one way they just need to pull the changes made by other teams. You'll set it to one way, and any changes they make won't be replicated to the other subsidiaries. So that's the idea. It's all achieved through Synology Drive to synchronize data in real time. We sometimes get the question, well, can this be used as a backup method between the different sites? Well, the answer is yes. However, I'd really flag that with Synology Drive, especially site to site, the changes are made in real time. So for instance, if you're hit by ransomware, and sometimes ransomware designed to use up all of your versions as much as possible, you might find yourself in a sticky situation. So always use our really native backup tools like Hyper Backup and replicate it to another site or to a cloud solution like Synology C2. Access control and integration, we've touched on this, but basically it really ties in within the Synology Drive admin interface, and you can see the options you have: sync all privileges, domain users only, again, so enable it, and then it ties in with your Azure Active Directory. So to wrap up multi-site deployments, what I really want to highlight is, as we've seen, it can synchronize computer to NAS, but then if you have another NAS on a separate site, it goes computer NAS second site. So it all ties in well. Real-time detection of the changes for inter-team collaboration, and change propagation. It's all block level sync to minimize the amount of bandwidth being used. I just want to mention two situations where, again, Synology Drive Share Sync is really useful, but bear this in mind. If the teams at different sites are editing large files at very high frequencies, especially if your network is a bit maybe throttled or bottlenecked, bear that in mind. It might not be the ideal solution, in which case you really want to have something more like Synology Office, for instance, where you don't have the synchronization of data between the different sites. Right, so private cloud is done in a way. Let's move into the world of hybrid cloud and what you can do. Right, so before we actually show you how to do it with Synology, I want to, well, maybe define what is a public cloud, what is a private cloud. Public cloud, I think we all instinctively know what it is. It's Microsoft Office 365, it's Google Drive. It's not local, it's there somewhere. You don't know where the data is, it's on someone else's infrastructure, but it's really convenient. I only pay for what I need. Generally, it's a subscription-based model. So with that cleared, let's define private cloud. And here's a common misconception. We often think it means on-premise. I need to own everything and have it locally, maybe have a server room. That's actually not the case. The key aspect is that you own the infrastructure, you own the servers, but it doesn't have to be on-premise. It can be in a data center. It can be even hosted with someone who like provides you the space, like an MSP, but really, so you might not need to do the management, but you really own the servers themselves. So with that cleared, and I'll remind you of this demand for private cloud. Another question is, well, okay, how many businesses out there need hybrid cloud solutions? And instinctively, you can start to feel that often they won't want, or they may not be able to choose. And so that's how we often find that easily up to 69%, if not more, of businesses require a hybrid cloud solution. So that's something that Synology, again, I think have really pioneered. It was 5-6 years ago that we had, so back then, Cloud Station, now Synology Drive, but also we launched Cloud Sync. And Cloud Sync was really to the idea was to create this bridge, this hybrid cloud solution. So Cloud Sync, key ideas, it gives you a local replica of your cloud data on your Synology NAS. It interfaces with 20 popular cloud services, and to make it secure, there's AES 256 encryption available. So what's the idea? So before that, I'm not saying it was impossible to have a hybrid cloud, but it wasn't easy. And so what happened by installing Cloud Sync? Well, all of your data on your local network with your users, when they're accessing the data locally, would be able to synchronize with public cloud solutions such as Google Drive, Dropbox, and it just made it much more simple for the IT admin to have this flow of data and making sure that the files were exactly where they needed when you needed them. I'd like to mention three scenarios. The first one is local versus remote access. Think of a salesperson. So we're based in the UK. Sometimes we travel in the Nordics or even further abroad. If you're going to have to dial back in, especially over a VPN to the UK office, it might be slower. Whereas if you can just work in Dropbox or Google Drive, well, they have a very well-built infrastructure. They've got servers all around the world. It'll be faster and a better experience. But still, people will be able to see your changes synchronized on the files locally. Backing up to the cloud, we see Cloud Sync used as that method, and it is possible to use it for that. I'll mention a caveat a bit later. And then finally, this one is actually, we see it where customers want to move to Synology Drive as a pure private cloud solution. They want to get rid of Dropbox or Google Drive, for instance. They use it as a migration tool, and once it's done, then they cancel their subscription. So three common scenarios that we see used. Sync control. It's important that the IT admin has control over when synchronization will happen and what type of files will be synchronized. So again, I'll mention that in the demo, which is coming up right now. So a demo of Cloud Sync. So this really will be synchronizing between the Synology NAS and a cloud service, Google Drive. And what I really want to emphasize here is, well, how it acts as a bridge. And what we'll do is we'll extend the previous demo that I showed you between Synology Drive and have it synchronized via the NAS all the way into the cloud. And we'll take a look at the synchronization settings. So without further ado, we are now in our DSM. you can see the existing files plus a new one. So that's an article, favorite cars. Again, what we'll be doing is editing it and putting a few of these images into it. So that's the idea. We're doing by synchronizing files and photos on the Synology NAS. And now I'm going to show you the Google Drive. It's mk.synology@gmail.com. And basically here you can see another folder, same name, just map it more easily, see what's happening. Now you can see not all of the files have synchronized, so you can already see we've played around with the settings, and we'll check how we can make sure that everything is mirrored by modifying the settings a bit later. So our article is already there. If I go back to the DSM, I'm going to open Cloud Sync. There's a little widget there. You can just have some things like pausing, resuming the sync. You can launch it directly or just get access to the package from the regular apps list. There we go. So we launched Cloud Sync. So you can see here already 3 tasks have been set up to a Google Drive, Dropbox. You can filter them by user, by cloud service. So the second Google Drive is the one we'll be playing with. Just give it a few seconds to restore, to pull the latest data. Okay, so connection info. What I'm going to do is take a look at the 4 tabs and walk you through them. So the first one is task list. Here I've only had 1 task created, so it's files and photos. You can see the local and the remote path. If I wanted to delete it, create a new one, again, it's the actions are right up there. The schedule. You may not want synchronization to happen all the time, maybe not during the day because people are aware that's when they are editing. So just enable the schedule and choose when to suspend the sync. It can be by day or even at certain hours during the day. So it's very simple to set up these schedules. And if you want to just disable them without losing the entire schedule, just untick enable. Easy. Further settings, the polling period, traffic control. So if you need to do QoS, maximum and so maximum upload and download rates are there. So just customize that. Okay, then the last tab is history. Think of it as a log. Everything, whether it's deletion, an upload, download, it's going to show there. And you can also choose to open the file to see what it's looking like. Great, so now for this specific task, we'll take a look at its own specific settings. So synchronization direction, so here this is what explains why we didn't see all of the files in the Google Drive. We'll be able to set it to go two-way sync. You've got a few extra ones just under, notably converting Google Online documents to Microsoft or Office and JPEG formats. Can be quite handy if you need it. We're going to set this to bidirectional, and then if you go to folder, okay, so here we're only synchronizing the root. File filters, you can, again, like in Synology Drive, maximum file size, you can define that. Filter files by type. You may not want any video files, for instance. You have complete control over it. And again, just like in Synology Drive, we've tried to keep the settings as consistent as possible. You can define specific file extensions that you don't want to see synchronized, and then you can choose to enable them or not. Right, so I think you get the idea. Now what we're going to do, we're not going to make any changes there. We'll just set it to bidirectional and we'll see what's going to happen. So let's click OK, and we should see that the video starts to synchronize, the files start to synchronize to our Google Drive. So give it a few seconds. Internet's a little bit slow on this connection yet. We should be getting a notification now yet. Perfect. So 3 files have been updated to Google Drive. We'll open its Chrome tab and you can see them. Refreshes automatically, so we can see the various images. And now that we have a bidirectional sync, we're going to start editing. And importantly, we're going to edit within Google Drive. Just use Open With Google Docs, and this is actually editing a docx, so not necessarily a Google Drive document. You have our article here. It's looking a bit sad, not many images, so we're going to lighten the mood. We'll insert a JAG E-type image that we have. You can do it locally or you can do it from the drive, so everything from within the cloud. Let's just select the nice red E-type, changes have been saved, so that's looking good. And now, what we want to do is check that these changes are being propagated back, not just to the NAS, but also to the Windows machine. So let's take a look at the DSM, just refresh the file station. You can see the modified date, well, the time slightly changed, and then go all the way down to the Windows machine and check. Okay, you open it in Google Docs and you can see the image has been inserted, is now showing even locally. So I think you get the idea how teams who are not necessarily in the office can co-work, and how CloudSync really acts as this bridge between everything. So speaking of CloudSync acting as a bridge, I'd like to flag an interesting case study from Macquarie University in Australia. Basically, in one of their research labs has got cameras footage which is feeding into a Synology NAS. I think it's a 4-bay RS816, so a nice cost-effective unit for their setup. And so, when the researchers are out of the office, they often need to view the footage from these HD video recorders. So rather than give VPN access, which means that if one of the researchers gets a virus on their computer by browsing, it might, again, over the VPN, it can again spread it if you copy data back onto the NAS. What they've done to optimize the security, they haven't done any sort of remote access for these researchers, and the data is just being synchronized to the OneDrive via CloudSync. So that for the IT admin is great for security, not needing to give direct access to the Synology storage. Right, so to wrap this up, CloudSync, can it act as a backup? The answer is yes, but I'd like to qualify that answer. First, CloudSync wasn't designed as a backup. Really, you should rely on Hyper Backup for that when you're backing up to a cloud service. It's designed for collaboration with two-way sync, so you can force it to upload only. But bear in mind, changes are detected in real time. I've mentioned the risk that can incur if you have a ransomware, for instance, and also we can't guarantee the level of the deltas of the synchronization. It may only be file level, depending on what the API of the the cloud provider offers. So really, I'd recommend using Hyper Backup if you want a backup solution to the cloud. Right, just skipped a slide. Synology is designed to be your own private cloud. Again, that's what we've been doing for 16 years, since our first NAS in 2004, and in recent years we've made it possible to make it a hybrid cloud. The benefits are, you don't have to choose between security and flexibility. You have all that inbuilt, and you can make sure that the data sets, which are absolutely critical, can be kept on the private cloud, and when you need the flexibility, for instance for your salespeople to access and edit, then it can be sent to the cloud. In that sense, CloudSync acts as a bridge or a gateway between your network and the public cloud services that you may need to use. Now, we haven't specifically dug into this in this session, but it really gives you that flexibility as an IT admin to optimize, the infrastructure and the overall costs that are going to be incurred. So I hope this gave you a good view of what's possible with Synology solutions, and that again, it might give you some ideas and open your eyes on some of the features that you may not have known of, or how you can best leverage them for your IT infrastructure. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us, and any feedback that you have around these sessions, we'll be glad to receive it from you. So thanks very much, everyone, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the next webinar.